This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
Coup in Turkey. Late reports today that the military has moved against the civilian government in that NATO country. Resilient economy. People are shopping. Factories are revving up production. Why the U.S. economy seems to be gaining steam even in the face of global headwinds. Making millions. How one entrepreneur spun his potter's wheel into a pot of gold. All that and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for Friday, July 15th. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Tyler Matheson. Sue Herrera is off tonight. A big week for the stock market, but we begin tonight with a big developing story out of Turkey. The Turkish Prime Minister said a group within the military has attempted to overthrow the civilian government. According to reports from the ground, gunfire was heard, jets seen flying over the capital of Ankara. Bridges to the city were closed. The head of the country said security forces had been called in to do, quote, what is necessary. He added that the government elected by the people remains in charge. The military, however, claims it is in control. Gold rose, as did the dollar versus the Turkish lira, and money moved into U.S. bonds and out of a major Turkish-based ETF. John Harwood is following the story for us tonight from Washington. John, has there been any reaction from the White House or State Department so far?
No, it's pretty early in this, Tyler. They're watching, trying to determine just what has happened because we don't know yet how much of the country the military controls, whether this has been successful, whether it's been successful only in a couple of places. Of course, Turkey is a NATO ally, very strategically located country right next to Syria, Iraq, Iran, a country that's important because we have U.S. military assets in Turkey, and the instability in that country raises questions about those assets. But first, the United States government, like everyone else, has got to figure out what exactly is going on.
What is going on there? Talk to me to the extent you can about the U.S. relationship with President Erdogan, who has been in power there, or whose party has been in power there for about 14 years, and our relationship with the military.
Well, it's been strained lately because Prime Minister Erdogan has seemed to be moving in an authoritarian direction. He also, in the view of the U.S. and allies, hasn't done quite enough to take on the Islamic State. He's done more lately, but of course the Turkish airport was hit by a major terrorist attack just a few weeks ago. The Turkish government is one that has been unstable in the past. If this coup is successful, it would be the third in the last half century. But the United States, by supporting Turkey's membership in NATO, has been trying to bring it into the family of nations that are more stable because it's such an important potential ally. Hasn't delivered on all of the hopes that the United States has had for that alliance, and we've got to wait and see just what the implications are of this development today.
And as you began by saying tonight, that Turkey shares a long and rather porous border with Syria. John Harwood, thanks very much. All right, now to the U.S. economy, which is surprising some with its resiliency. American consumers flexed their financial muscles in June, putting to rest some concerns that the weak growth overseas would have a big impact here. Retail sales rose 0.6% last month, much better than expected. And it's not just the retail sector. Manufacturing may be on the mend after a report today showed that industrial output, which includes just about everything made by factories, is picking up. This follows positive data on the jobs market and an uptick in inflation earlier in the week. Steve Leisman has more on the economy that's gaining some steam.
A slew of economic reports showing an economy on the rebound in the second quarter, while comments from Fed officials suggest only the possibility of modest rate hikes this year, if at all. Atlanta Fed President Dennis Lockhart saying that the Fed may yet manage one or two hikes in 2016. His comments came after data showed the second quarter economic rebound picking up a bit of steam with stronger than expected retail sales data and improved industrial production.
The consumer never went away. What drove sales in the U.S. in June apparently was auto and home furnishings. Apparel and accessories continues to be very tough.
The data combined to push up the tracking forecast for second quarter growth to 2.7%, up a tenth, and a considerable improvement over the 1.1% from the first quarter. A couple concerns in the data. Consumer sentiment was lower than Wall Street expected, and inflation a touch hotter.
Some of the recent inflation data and today is some of the hottest we've seen. So that's creating a dynamic where the Fed's going to run out of excuses. So the economy's picking up a bit, and that's going to force the dollar higher and risk off, as we saw last August. The same scenario is playing out again.
For the moment, all the signals from the Fed are that they're willing to abide higher inflation and let the fledgling economic turnaround fly further, especially because it could yet be grounded by concerns over Brexit or the U.S. election. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Steve Leisman.
A week that saw sizable stock market gains finished mixed. The Dow was able to eke out another record close. The S&P 500 just shy of one. The blue chip Dow index up 10 points to 18,516. NASDAQ lost 4. And the S&P 500, which had been at records the past 4 sessions, fell fractionally. So its streak of record closes is over. But another streak continues. This was the 3rd straight week of gains overall for stocks, with all of the major averages seeing gains of 1.5% or more. Meanwhile, in France, French officials spent the day trying to piece together the details and motives behind last night's deadly Bastille Day attack in Nice. It left 84 dead, including 10 children and adolescents, and more than 200 injured. Hadley Gamble is in Nice with the latest.
Tonight, France is once again facing an uncertain future, just 24 hours after an attack that left 84 people dead, including dozens of children, over 200 people injured, many of them critically. World leaders, including U.S. President Barack Obama and French President Francois Hollande, are tying yesterday's incident to terror.
We will not be deterred. We will not relent. We're going to keep working together to prevent attacks and defend our homeland. We are going to keep taking out ISIL leaders and pushing ISIL back in Syria and Iraq. We're going to keep standing with our partners from Africa to Afghanistan, and we are going to destroy this vile terrorist organization.
Now, just 24 hours after yesterday's attack, the Promenade d'Anglais here in Nice has been cleared, as you can see behind me. There's a strong smell of chemicals in the air. There were workers here all day long cleaning this street. And it seems as if, at least from the response here in Nice at least, that things are slowly returning to normal. The question, of course, going forward is how France or any country, including the United States, can prepare itself for what appears to be a lone wolf attack on a massive scale. U.S. and French authorities have confirmed that the suspect was not on any known terror watch list and wasn't known to local or national intelligence authorities. We saw mourners gathering throughout the day here in Nice, making makeshift memorials for the victims, as well as gathering at the Nice Cathedral for services. But again, not at all the same kind of tone that we saw in Paris during earlier attacks. And that would seem to signal, at least for now, this seems to be the new normal in France. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Hadley Gamble in Nice.
China's economy expanded 6.7% in the 3 months ended in June, holding steady at the first quarter pace of growth. Industrial output and retail sales were healthier, but much of the weakness was in the property sector. This is a concern because a revival in the property market has been credited with helping China avoid a hard economic landing. Private sector investment also ground to a halt, and that raises questions about whether growth can continue at current levels without more government stimulus. Well, one way China plans to grow its economy is with startups. The government is offering incentives to entrepreneurs, encouraging them to take their ideas and start their own businesses. Eunice Yoon talked to one man who's doing just that.
For dog owners, if you've ever wondered what this means, Damien Ju is building an app for you. The 26-year-old is developing one dream pet for mobile devices to help owners better communicate with their pets.
When your pet barks, right, it translates the barking voice print instantly and send it to your phone, right? Like, Mom, I'm hungry, I need to go out, come back home soon. Yeah, like that. But it's all based on data, the data bank we built.
Ju is among an emerging group of young Chinese building startups encouraged by the government's push to support entrepreneurs to expand the economy. Instead of heading to Wall Street or Silicon Valley after studying in the U.S., Ju chose to return to Shanghai, sensing an opportunity in the country's pet industry.
it's easier, or it costs me less, compared to do my startup in the States. In terms of pet industry, it's a mature industry back in the States, in any other Western countries, but in China, it's a growing market.
His team believes the gadget will be popular among Chinese pet owners, increasingly willing to lavish luxuries on their newest family members. The $15 billion pet industry has grown by over 30% annually for the last 5 years. For these young entrepreneurs, authorities here are offering tax breaks, subsidizing rent, and granting seed money. Ju was initially able to raise $150,000 from VCs, though fundraising remains a challenge.
So I actually applied for some money from the government, and it took me like 8 months. I raised one round of small seed, and it's spreading pretty fast. And that's what I'm raising from angel fund. And the macroeconomic is not too good in China right now. People are very cautious and prudent.
Still inspired by the late Apple founder Steve Jobs, Ju has devoted his life to his startup, turning his bedroom into an office.
I don't come back to China to live an easy life, to make more friends. I come back to China to do a business.
A business he hopes to take global and put China's startups on the world map. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Eunice Yoon in Shanghai.
Still ahead, the best places to put your money despite all the global uncertainty. Our Market Monitor has some investment ideas for you. The White House predicts that the government's budget deficit will rise to $600 billion this year. That's an increase over last year, and it reverses a trend of improving deficits. The White House also cut its forecast for overall economic growth. The government now predicts that gross domestic product will rise 1.9% this year and 2.5% in 2017. Fiat Chrysler is creating 1,000 new jobs. The automaker will invest $1 billion to upgrade 2 plants in the Middle West. The decision is part of the company's plan to increase production of Jeep SUVs as demand increases for larger cars. Well, Herbalife has settled with the Federal Trade Commission. The company agreed to pay $200 million in consumer relief and will overhaul its business practices. Though the agreement ends a 2-year investigation, the agency said Herbalife, quote, is going to have to start operating legitimately.
Today's $200 million settlement, one of the largest consumer redress settlements obtained by the Federal Trade Commission, will provide compensation for many of the company's distributors for the losses they've suffered. The order will prohibit deceptive marketing tactics, such as the promises of a lavish lifestyle and untold riches, and the false implication that typical participants are likely to earn career-level incomes.
The agreement marks a financial setback, however, for the hedge fund manager Bill Ackman, who placed a big short bet against Herbalife, essentially wagering the stock would collapse. Ackman has alleged that the company's operations were improper. But the FTC stopped short of calling Herbalife a pyramid scheme, and investors sent the stock higher by about 10%. Well, profit and revenue fall at Citigroup, and that's where we begin tonight's market focus. The bank saw both of those metrics drop double digits as lower interest rates dragged down results. Despite that, Citigroup still managed to beat analyst estimates. Shares down a tick at 44.33. Low interest rates also hit results at Wells Fargo. The bank saw quarterly profit dip 3%, but that was still good enough to match street estimates. Profits rose, also in line with the targets. The company CFO spoke about how Wells Fargo is navigating through today's low-rate environment.
Well, we are in a low-rate environment, but as you'll notice, we managed to generate $5.6 billion worth of net income. And we did it by growing loans 9% year over year. We did it by growing deposits. We did it by growing a variety of fee streams.
Shares fell 2.5% nonetheless to 47.71. Shares of Infosys plummeted after the IT services firm cut its yearly revenue guidance, citing concerns over the Brexit fallout. The company also reported an earnings and revenue miss, attributing the results to an unanticipated headwind in the firm's consulting services division. Shares of Infosys down nearly 9% on the day to $16.81. And Yahoo may have a buyer for its web assets as soon as next week. The New York Times said that final bids are due on Monday, and according to a report from the New York Post, Verizon is expected to emerge as the top bidder. Verizon shares unchanged at $55.84. Zyopharm Oncology said a patient died while taking part in an experimental drug trial intended to treat a deadly form of brain cancer. This is the third patient death in the study. But Zyopharm said it will continue to enroll new patients. Shares of the company fell more than 11% on the news to $5 and a penny. Well, this week's Market Monitor finds opportunity in large cap stocks, even though they have underperformed a bit so far this year. This is his first time joining us as a Market Monitor. Ron Weiner, Managing Director and Partner at RDM Financial at Hightower. Ron, welcome. Good to see you again. Let's start with why you like some of the big cap names that you do. We'll get to them in just a minute. Why are you going big and tech?
Well, first off, being the inaugural visit here, I thought that I should talk about low interest rates, lower, longer, and things like Home Depot, Annalee Capital that'll take advantage of all this low interest rate. But I thought I'd go big and talk about the cloud. We exited most of Europe, actually, after the Brexit, saying to ourselves, you know what, we don't really know what's going to happen, and the U.S. seems to be chugging along. Steve Leeson's report was pretty positive, and we think so too. And it's a little bit safer to be in the large caps, even if the small and mid caps outperform. It's okay with us. We're kind of a conservative firm, not counting one of the stocks I'm going to talk about.
Yep.
But we think it's a little bit safer and play the U.S. for the most part.
Let's talk about a stock that spent a heck of a lot of the last 15 years kind of going nowhere, but lately it's been doing very nicely, and that's Microsoft. You think it can do even better?
Yeah, I think we've probably owned it on and off for three times in the past 15 or 20 years. But we bought it a while ago when Satya Nadella took over. New breath. It's like a different company. They embrace the cloud. They're doing a great job in creating a private cloud, which is only second to Amazon in size in subscribers. They're replacing the loss of their PC, their Windows and PCs with other programs. Let's see.
Right.
I think for now that they're trading at about $61 and $51, and we think it's worth a lot more.
A lot more. You got a price target of 65 over the next 12 months. Google is your second pick. You see fair value about 780, but a price target of 1,000 over the next 12 months. Tell me about Alphabet or Google.
So much to say. First off, their senior management's still there from the start. Bren, Schmidt. I mean, these are guys that are really smart. They've put together and they're starting to really leverage all their different programs. Android's the dominant player in phones. They're still 80% of all the search. And really what we're doing is we're taking advantage of what's happening around the globe. Cloud's the thing. Search is the thing. Big data is the thing, and they're doing a great job of leveraging all these together, and they got the brand.
And a final quick thought, please, on Alibaba. You call them Amazon on steroids with a price target of about 110 over the next 12 months. Quick thought.
Yeah, that's been a frustrating stock. That is our one truly risk stock. Alibaba has been growing their big data. They're not just consumer spending now. Now they're big data. They have been expanding globally. We think with only about 5 or 6% of Chinese buying online, they got a world to go. And even now, their subscription base, believe it or not, is the same size as the entire United States.
Holy mackerel.
And they're getting clearer, and their accounting's getting clearer. So we're hopeful, and we think it may be a big winner.
All right, Ron, thanks very much. Ron Weiner with RDM Financial Group at Hightower. Coming up, he found his passion as a kid at summer camp and turned it into a design empire. It's tonight's How I Made My Millions. Pokemon Go quickly overtook Candy Crush with more daily active users than any mobile game in U.S. history, and its popularity could be a turning point for the burgeoning augmented reality industry. Julia Borston has our story.
Pokemon Go's massive success, dominating the streets and ruling the app stores. It could open the floodgates for augmented reality's use in everything from advertising to manufacturing.
This is the first of those great experiments, and we're on really the earliest of innings around augmented reality, mixed reality, virtual reality. This is a very simple but brilliantly executed first step. Expect many more to come.
The market for augmented reality is projected to grow to as much as $90 billion a year by 2020. That's 3 times the projected size of the market for virtual reality, according to DigiCapital. And it's not just fun and games. Ad startup Blipper uses augmented reality for marketing, layering advertising material over real-world products. Secretive AR company Magic Leap has raised over $1 billion. Google and Alibaba are among its big backers. Microsoft's augmented reality goggles HoloLens are already available to developers, though a consumer release date hasn't been announced. There are uses for console gameplay as well as enterprise applications. Startup Dacry designs augmented reality helmets and software for workers in industrial and manufacturing settings. GE CEO Jeff Immelt saying augmented reality's industrial applications are going to generate billions of dollars in productivity.
Because you could fix everything right the first time, you had a chance to visualize and manage the human data interface down by 10%. That's probably worth $50 billion or something.
And many people use augmented reality every day and don't even realize it, with the likes of these Snapchat lenses bringing another dimension to our everyday lives. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Julia Borston in Los Angeles.
It was a passion he discovered at summer camp, but it took Jonathan Adler years and lots of ups and downs to spin his potter's wheel into a successful design business. He's the subject of tonight's How I Made My Millions.
Fresh, stylish, eccentric. These are words that Jonathan Adler uses to describe his $100 million home decor empire built from behind a pottery wheel. Growing up in a farm town in New Jersey, Adler found his life's passion at a young age.
My first pot was at summer camp when I was 12 years old, and the second I touched clay, it was just on. It's a fun feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great.
When my parents came to get me at the end of the year, they found a pasty potter with a passion.
That pasty potter attended Brown University, majoring in semiotics, but spending most of his time in the pottery studio at nearby Rhode Island School of Design. He even considered pursuing a Master of Fine Arts degree in ceramics.
I went to my pottery teacher at RISD, and she said, I don't think you have what it takes. You have no talent, so you should just move to New York and become a lawyer.
Reluctantly, he took that advice and moved to New York City. His first job, working at a talent agency.
I got fired from that first job, and then I moved to another agency and got fired. So I just started teaching pottery classes at night and making stuff during the day while looking for jobs.
Finding himself no closer to a real job, Adler's parents encouraged him to make pottery his business. In 1993, he made his move.
So I called up a buyer at Barney's, just out of the blue. And Barney's buyer came over to my studio apartment and looked at my pots and was like, these are great. I want to order them.
And that was your first sale?
That was my first sale. 6 months later, I still hadn't been paid. Finally, I called them up and they said, oh yeah, you're the guy who made those striped pots. Like, why didn't you include an invoice? And I said, what's an invoice? I was making all the pots myself. I'd rollerblade to the studio. I'd be there at 7 a.m. I would leave at 11 p.m. 7 days a week.
Adler soon realized that he couldn't keep up with demand by himself. So he partnered with an organization in Peru, training local artisans to manufacture his designs. And then a big order from Pottery Barn gave Adler the confidence and the cash to expand.
I thought, wow, I'm going to take this capital and open a store.
The first Jonathan Adler store opened in New York's Soho neighborhood in 1998. In 2001, a Los Angeles outpost, Miami, Chicago, San Francisco quickly followed. Adler creates a brand manifesto.
It's about style and craft and joy. And once I came up with those 3 words, I thought, well, those words don't just have to apply to pots.
Today, there are 30 stores globally selling Adler's furniture, home accessories, and yes, pottery. Adler's sprawling headquarters in Soho is the nerve center for the brand's operations.
But the heart of it is still my pottery studio. I'm in here a lot.
You do think we can sell this, right?
100%.
Where are you in this company in 20 years?
I am restless and relentless and obsessed with design. Whatever happens with my company, however it develops, I see myself in the creative director role until I kick the bucket.
And when I asked him whether there was an item he wanted to design that he hadn't yet, he said yes, a car. A recap now of our top story out of Turkey. The prime minister says a group within the military has attempted to overthrow the government. According to reports from the ground, gunfire was heard, jets seen flying over the capital of Ankara. Bridges to the city have been closed. The head of the country said the government remains in charge. The military claims it is in control. Gold rose, as did the dollar versus the Turkish lira, and money moved into U.S. bonds and out of Turkish ETFs. That, folks, is Nightly Business Report for tonight. Thanks for joining us. I'm Tyler Mathisen. Have a great weekend, everybody. We will see you Monday.